Hey guys, welcome to Spy Plays. Today we're going to be making a cEDH tier list. This list is going to be comprised of around 70 decks, mainly from the cEDH database. The video is going to be split up into around 3 to 4 parts, as it took us around 3 hours to film. If you guys like Magic and Eternal formats as much as us, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it and love to get your feedback. If you feel we left out a deck you really enjoy, or have other comments on the format as a whole, let us know down below. Thanks for checking out the channel, and without further ado, let's get into the tier list. Alright, let's do Jeleva, which is one of Alex's favorite decks as well.
Yeah, so I was a kind of a longtime Jeleva player. I really enjoyed playing the deck back when we didn't have all these modern good red cards, damn it, and I had to kind of justify myself playing red. And, you know, playing like 1,000-Year Storm loops and bonus round loops and all that, like, sort of strange tech. I kind of miss that. It's like a bygone era. But yeah. I think Jeleva still has a pretty good place right now because she does very well into, especially these very, like, inbred Turbo Naz metas, because all you have to do really is you mulligan for mana, you play Jeleva, and you're guaranteed to get gas.
Right. Especially the more Jeleva does amazing, the more, like, Naz decks there are.
Yeah,
she does really well into like full Naz pod. So if you have like we'll say that about certain decks. Some decks are just really good into certain pods. Like we were saying, like modern. It's like modern where some decks are gonna be really good against other decks. So
yeah,
it kind of depends. But the tier list is just like the overall.
Yeah.
What would you put her overall?
I'm saying S. I think she's kind of in this. I think there was generally this sort of lump of S tier decks, because a lot of the format is kind of defined by the Turbo Naz decks versus the Rule of Law decks. And it's when you're in those two categories, it's going to be pretty good. It's kind of hard to fall below that unless there's like some weird stuff going on.
That's true. Yeah, right now, if you're playing in a Turbo Naz meta, S tier is pretty good. And most people are playing the Turbo Naz game plan. So I'd say for right now, yeah. But if you're in like an inbred stacks meta, like you're not hitting anything.
No, definitely switch off the deck to something else.
You're gonna cry. So, but yeah, I'd say in this meta, as long as your pod isn't too much stacks, I'd say she's kind of like the bottom of S tier, maybe top of A tier.
Yeah.
And but she has a lot of room to improve. That's the sort of thing. I guess our assumption going into this is that you're going to be seeing mixed pods more often than not. You know, not all stacks, not all Turbo Naz, not all mid-range, kind of a combination. You know, maybe 2 Turbo Naz decks and 2 stacks decks, or 2 and then 1 mid-range, 1 stacks. Some combination thereof.
Yeah. And I think Jeleva performs pretty well in most combinations.
All right, this is a weird deck. We're going next. I don't even notice it. What is it? The
Marath. Will of the Wild.
Will of the Wild.
I am not a Marath believer.
Never seen
I
this
am
deck.
not either.
I'm sorry if you play Marath. Like, that's cool. If I saw this deck, I would give you, like, a high five, because, like, it's just a weird deck.
Come on, they're playing the spooky deer, right? The art is nice, but I think the deck is something It has something lacking.
Like
right? I look at Rograkh Thar, I look at Marath, and I don't see a good comparison. I just think Rograkh Thar is, like, a lot better than Marath.
What's like a key card in the deck? Do you guys know? I tried to look up primers for this, but it was just like
so nothing really combos with Marath. Marath is honestly it's only really there to just kind of get rid of random creatures that are problems.
Right.
And so what the deck winds up being is it kind of just winds up being a just Naya Stacks deck with a commander that really doesn't do much. That doesn't. It gets you a little bit, but it doesn't get you much. I think there are metas where this deck is actually where you can succeed playing Marath.
So the idea is eventually you assemble the holy trinity of Linvala, Living Plane, and Collector Oof to make sure that they cannot produce meta of any kind. But you know what? You better go to church if you want to pull that off, because I don't see it happening very often.
I'm gonna be inclined to put this deck in like the D tier.
Yeah, that's where I would put it too.
I don't want to say high-powered casual, only because like you probably honestly you could probably get away with it, but casual players would absolutely hate you if you played this deck, because it's a stacks deck and casual players just hate stacks in general. I love stacks, but like you know,
way get your car keyed.
Yeah, like people like jokingly, but like that's people are gonna be like, what the hell is this? And then they're just gonna not have a good time. And yeah, you could probably get the combo off in casual, honestly, but it'll be kind of funny.
Yeah, but
DTO is definitely there. All right, Edric, we actually have one of our friends.
So
Edric.
This deck is a little bit better now that Hull Breacher has been removed.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, a little bit. I think a decent bit better. However, right. I'm still not very high on it. I'm still thinking probably like C. Yeah. Maybe previously would have been D because of Hull Breacher, straight up.
Yeah, this is just an extra turns deck, and it just tries to get a bunch of card advantage playing a bunch of 1/1s. The problem is when you do that, you lose a lot of card slots, and it's also only Simic. So like being Simic, it just 2 colors limits you, and then the commander. I don't know. This is actually a really, really fun high power casual deck that I'd consider pretty cool to play. So I'm thinking to put it just high power casual because I think it does really well in casual, and it'd be a fun deck to play in casual, but it just doesn't cut it into like being able to compete with all these other decks.
Missing that secret sauce.
Like even what's funny is even Marath or
Marath.
Yeah.
Marath, yeah, even Marath, I feel like would be better situated in a cEDH pod because it has stacks. And stacks is one of the, like, you're either stacks or you're not stacks, or you're in between. The problem is it doesn't do good enough in between, so.
That's an interesting point you bring up.
Right, so I think I'm going to put it in high power casual. What about you guys?
So, I think it can, like, I think it has some legs in cEDH, but I think you would honestly maybe have a better time playing it in casual that way.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Is that strange? I mean, I think it's like still has its place, but you have so much more fun playing it in casual that honestly, it's like I might just like if I played Edric competitively, I might just retire that to casual, have that high powered, and have something else because it'll just be a better experience.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
Let's go into the next. Oh, did you have something to say?
So where are we deciding to put it?
I put it in high power casual. That's where I'm deciding. Just because like it would be fun to play it in casual, and it does have legs. You could put it in a cEDH pod, but in the meta right now, it just kind of gets shafted. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it can work. Extra turn decks have been doing a little bit better than they have in like previous times.
Okay.
But
going by viability, I would say probably more of like a C tier, but the high-powered casual is like.
But I will definitely agree with you. Like, if you want to be playing an Edric deck, you will not have the experience you really want playing it in cEDH.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to Nath. Wait, this is another.
We can throw in casual. I think that's probably fine.
This is another deck that John played before in the pods.
So honestly, almost the less said about Nath, the better. But really, the crux of it, I think, is it's very good at making one player not win, and then but not be able to do anything else besides that.
This is spite play.
This is going in casual for me.
I'm gonna put this as like the cover of like the card that we have in the intro for next time, because this is literally like spy play the card.
Yeah,
it just destroys everyone's hands. And when we played Nath against like Godo and like control decks, Godo would just win. I think I had like an 80 to 90% win rate over like 20 games with Nath because no one had a hand. But with Godo, you literally just go mountain pass until you just cast Godo and then you win, and no one can do anything because no one has a hand, and then Nath can't win because he's just too slow to assemble that combo.
It's truly a wretched place to be in.
Yeah, Nath gets a little bit better with the new Golgari combo, the one with Witherbloom Apprentice.
Oh, let me look that up.
Honestly, if we're saying that like Chain of Smog and Witherbloom Apprentice is like a shining point, we're the pits. That combo, it strips your hand.
Yeah, but usually
it's
Nath
so
will kind of already not have a hand. But why I feel like the deck is actually more irrelevant now than it has been is due to the fact that there's so many decks that can rely on winning with one card, with just drawing a card off the top and being like, oh, okay, this is a tutor that I can go find an ad nauseum with. Whereas before, I'd say, before even in like Flash Hulk meta, I would say this deck was actually better there.
I think
it was not
meta.
I'm not going to talk about how good it was. it was not good. But I would argue that it was actually even better there because
you could randomly snipe a Seedborn Muse or something.
Yeah, well, and people were more inclined to be. People were playing 2-card combos, which means you're more likely to hit one piece. When people can just draw Tutor off the top and then just like find their win con, their 1-card win con, their Ad Nauseam, their Glinthorn Buccaneer, their whatever. The meta is all about playing 1-card combos for the most part right now. The combo decks are doing that.
What are we putting this, like D?
It's high. It's
casual.
It's high power casual. Okay. Oh my god, that's hilarious. I'm gonna put it there, but
I'm gonna say that.
Honestly, like I'm the type of player that would play this in casual because I love stacks, and this is a fun
when
casual
you pick
deck.
Nath, oh man,
but yeah, my card's
when you pick Nath, you're not playing to win. You're playing to like spite another player.
Yeah, this is like I didn't even think about this. This is a commander that would be like head of spite plays. He's up. He would be SS tier in spite plays. All right, let's get on to Selvala. Explorer Return. Is that it? Yeah.
I'm dumping her in the same bucket. I'm not a believer.
I don't. Yeah. Reveal the top card of your library for each non-land card add.
It's kind of group hug. Like
it's kind of a weird. It's a weird spot. It's
green white Selvala.
Yeah, green white Selvala.
Yeah,
it's high power casual. What's the? Is there like a big combo for that deck? What's the?
Yes, you can use the. Yeah, you can use the activations on her. That can like get you to the win. But it's like a combo outlet in your command zone.
What is the win for? Is it? Do you guys know?
Don't remember. Don't care.
I'm just playing a high power casual.
You oftentimes you play like what's the stupid tree equipment called?
Umbral Mantle.
Umbral Mantle. Yeah,
our favorite.
Yeah, you'll use it to along with. I think like something that makes it tap for more mana to make like basically infinite mana and then draw your deck. But at the end of the day, you're playing Selesnya. You can't win through Rule of Law.
Your commander can't like grind. If you're trying to grind with Selvala, it's group hug. Yeah,
it's group hug. It's just it's not where you want to be at all.
So let's get on to what is it? Tarl? Bruse, I said that so
we're going to talk about Bruse Thrasios, I believe, right?
Yeah, Bruse Thrasios is what I'm thinking.
We considered Bruse Tymna, but not a lot of people are on that deck anymore, just with the development that's gone on with Mardu Turbo Nas decks.
This is like a stack deck, right?
So this is like a sort of mid-range deck. The way that people are playing it right now is like Dawnwaker Thrasios. Okay. So you're using it with Zerda the Dawnwaker, and that's going to let you generate infinite mana, so you can draw your whole deck with Thrasios. Previously, there was also the Evolution decks, but they've taken a really big hit with the banning of Hull Breacher, since that was a key piece with some of your Breach combos.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I would say this is one of those decks that plays... It's one of those mid-range decks that plays around the interaction of the format very well. And it can grind value. It plays like... Often they'll play like 1 or 2 stacks pieces themselves, just to kind of not like crazy ones. They might play like a Deafening Silence or a Rest in Peace. Just a couple of things.
You were talking about Zerda
the Dawnwaker.
Zerda the Dawnwaker.
Yeah, the companion. Right, but you just play main deck.
Oh, sick. Yeah. I'll pull it up here. So, and that just allows you to get a bunch of Thrasios activations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But the deck is able to grind pretty well and plays interaction to stop the fast decks, and then is able to play through the interaction of the format very well. And while it's not like on paper, it's not the strongest deck. When you look at everything that it has to deal with, it winds up doing a pretty good job of working around stuff.
Yeah. So I'm not experienced enough playing it with or against the deck. Mm-hmm. It's something I'd like to try at some point, potentially. But I'm kind of split between A and B. Maybe I'll be generous and say A, because I'm kind of a fan of that game plan. It's like the grindy Thrasios deck that isn't folding to all these things, but like still is able to like keep that advantage, and it's always in the game, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's definitely better than B.
I think A tier's up there. Yeah,
I think it's A. I think like very good players have had good success with the deck, similar to that of like S tier decks, but I don't know that I'd be inclined to put it there. Like,
I think S is a little bit too.
I think it's a little bit too generous.
Yeah,
but so the deck can feel very good.
Yeah. Let's get on to one of the best decks in the format and one of my most hated. I'm kidding. This is a deck that John plays. It's Tymna Kraum, which is blue farm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are the thoughts on that?
This is going straight to double S for me.
Yeah.
I think the flexibility is really what tips it over the edge for this deck.
It does everything. Yeah. It literally does everything.
Gets to have all the advantages of being a fast farm deck while almost having all of the advantages of being able to like play a mid-range grind plan with Tymna.
Very well. Yeah.
It's like fast mid-range, which is strange.
Yeah.
But you can adapt it a lot to your meta. You're able to, there's a lot of flexibility with these packages. You can do things like take out the whole intuition package and maybe put in things that are better against stacks. Like you can put in Conqueror's Flail. You can put like Dress Down.
Right.
And actually, you should just be playing Dress Down if you're facing a lot of stacks anyhow.
Yeah. Dress Down's a great card.
People haven't necessarily been like the hottest on the card in Turbo Nas, but I think it's a great pickup.
It's won many games in our inbred stacks meta.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I'll say about Dress Down, the quick spiel I'll give is that if Dress Down is bad, that's purely a meta thing, and that means you're probably playing in like a very aggressive turbo meta. But I wouldn't go and say that's a knock against the card in the same way that I'd say Mnemonic Betrayal is bad because I play against stacks decks all the time. That's just the meta composition, and these cards kind of fluctuate in value.
Yeah, or like saying Chain of Vapor is bad because I play against a bunch of Turbo Nas decks. Like, it's no, Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, this deck is definitely a double S tier. I would argue
100%.
and say it's the best deck in the format, but I won't get too much into that.
Yeah, it definitely does a lot. It also reminds me of Najeela. Just because we're comparing it because they're both in the S tier. It reminds me of like Najeela, but you're not focused on your commander. So like you need Najeela, or you don't need Najeela to win technically, but like you need, or Najeela can win from the command zone. With Tymna and Kraum, you really don't even care about your commander. They're just, the whole deck is just value. It's like, it's that's why it's just so good. And I've seen it come out of really stacks out games and just win out of nowhere, which is very telling at how good a deck is right now.
Yeah.
This discussion, I might say that we could go with Kraum Ikra.
Kraum Ikra. Oh, I think that's
because
the deck.
These two decks are also similar. The thing with the Ikra Kraum is, I'd say it feels like it's a little bit of a step behind. It's not as flexible in what you can play, even though it has some really great answers like Culling Ritual, but they're not going to be like the silver bullets that you need exactly all the time. They require a little bit more to go through, because something like Culling Ritual is wonderful into these heavy board states, but doesn't clear up the rule of laws, because those are pretty much all 3 CMC. So you run into sort of issues like that. The deck is still very strong, though, so I'm putting it in S tier. I think it can grind really very well.
Yeah,
I had a game a week or two ago where I copied someone's Saracen and then rode that up to 125 life. So
that was a 4-hour stacks game.
You can Nas very deep with that. You get to grind with Necropotence and Sylvan Library, which Sylvan Library is interesting because it falls off in value normally. It's great in fast decks. In like slower mid-range decks, you honestly at a certain point just say, I'm not drawing any more off of this because I'm going to die. You never have to worry about that with this deck.
Right. All right, let's we'll go through the Nas decks a little quick. Not a little quicker, but so we'll do Silas Rohgahh next, which is a deck that I have built. It's very fun. This is literally like the turbo. Like it puts the turbo in Turbo Nas because you just cast Rogg obviously every time turn 1, and you just get access to all the 0 mana things that can benefit from Rogg, like all your like deflecting swats and your the commander cards that came out that are free with your commander, and then on top of that you can start using like Mox Opal because it's a legendary creature, so you can get those out. What are the other things?
Mox Amber. That's right.
Amber.
It's really Mox Ruby in this deck.
Yeah, seriously. And it just plays a lot. Oh, you can play a lot of the sack stuff, so like Culling Ritual and things, and just you get so much value from Rogg.
Yeah.
And it just allows you to, especially in like a very heavy Nas meta, to get out faster than everyone else.
But it helps you just be half a turn to a whole turn ahead of other decks. That's really what Rograkh and the command set enables.
Of good rituals and rocks that you're now allowed to play just simply by having Rograkh just bumps you up definitely a notch. And allows pretty much when you're playing this deck, you are pretty much always going to be doing something powerful on turn 1. It's
just not resilient compared to the other.
Twisted. You shouldn't play stuff that synergizes with Silas. Maybe Citadel at most. Bolus of Citadel, that's about it.
So, Silas doesn't do much with the deck besides provide colors, and he's also a death toucher. If the game gets kind of grindy and people start attacking you, you can kind of like throw them out there. But the deck definitely doesn't grind as good as other Nas decks, but that doesn't mean it's not able to. It's just it's not going to blue farm grind. It's not going to Ikra.
It's not
Shidiqi
coming out of its
grind.
end zone. The grind is going to be coming out of the generic good cards from playing blue.
Right. So that's what you gain speed with Rog, but obviously with all that speed you're gonna burn out a little quicker. So I'm putting this one in S tier for sure though.
Yeah.
I
think we can say the same for Rograkh Tymna, if we want to put that in there too right now, because I think you have very similar strengths and disadvantages too. Though Tymna does help since you're able to farm draws off of people.
Right.
But of course you're losing brain freeze and half of your wheels. So there's some trade-offs being made.
So you want to put Rograkh Tymna in the same spot? Pretty much.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I'll put that there right now. Let me grab the other Rograkh. Right there he is. You little Rograkh.
And those same colors, you might also consider Jessica Tymna for better grinding ability. It's up to you.
Yeah. So I'm going to do Tana, the Bloodsower, right? And then, what is the partner with that one usually?
Tymna Tana?
Tymna Tana.
We're talking about Team or Malcolm, right?
Or do you want to go with Team or Malcolm?
I don't think we want to talk about Blood Pod right now.
But yeah, let's go to Team or Malcolm. I think
Blood Pod's bad.
Yeah, Blood Pod's not in the best spot right now.
No, I don't think it's bad. I think people are overlooking it, but it is. Yeah.
Let's say with Team or Malcolm, I'm gonna say A tier because I think the green tutors do help a lot with finding your Glinthorn Buccaneer. However, you're missing a lot of these like good black cards that you would get access to with Vial Smasher instead. So
the deck plays better into grindier and staxier pods than its other Vial Smasher alternative, Malcolm Vial Smasher alternative, right?
Right.
But I would say in general you're playing not quite as good of cards, and the deck when it performs well though, this deck can definitely perform. It won a tournament recently. I forget which one. But this deck definitely has legs. But I don't know if it's quite as good as the rest of the S tier decks.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's go into Thrasios Tymna. Yeah.
Sure. So what do we think about this? Well, I think Thrasios Tymna now, I kind of think Razakats are bust because just from what I can tell, a lot of these sort of like mid-range like CST variants haven't been seeing as nearly as much success. I think the banning of Paradox Engine was like a bigger blow than people realized at the time.
I agree with you. However, I am going to put this out here, Alex. I don't think as many good pilots are choosing to play those decks anymore. And I think that might be they're opting to play different decks because they enjoy them more. Because honestly, for the longest time, Thrasios Tymna has just been so powerful that like people have just played it. Now, however, I feel like because it doesn't feel so overwhelmingly powerful, people are like compelled to play other things. And a lot of the good pilots for like the best pilots for just for like Thrasios Tymna mid-range decks aren't playing it as much. I think the deck is not as strong as it used to be.
It's definitely lost ground.
Yeah, it's definitely does not perform as well. But I think it would be wrong to say this deck is not a very strong deck.
What are you guys thinking then? Probably like an
I say
S?
A tier.
Maybe A.
I think it's kind of a step behind right now, but that's my opinion.
I think I would still say this is an S tier deck. You can get bullied. This deck can get bullied in like full turbo Naz. But in balanced pods, the deck can still perform pretty well.
Okay.
That sounds about right. I think I'm gonna put it low S tier.
Yeah, when you're trying to avoid full turbo Naz, and everything else, you feel pretty comfortable. You're gonna do a good job with pretty much everything.
My impression is that I haven't really seen the deck nearly as much recently.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So that's I guess a bit of my bias, I guess, coming in of sample size bias.
That makes sense. Obviously, there's things to it.
A lot of pilots have migrated.
Thrasios Vial Smasher. That's
so this is
4 colors.
This is an interesting one. Yeah, so I'm gonna say I used to play this deck a little bit, and I think really what this deck wants to do in the modern era, cut the pyroclasms. Just please cut the pyroclasms and play these like good creatures with the 2 toughness, right? You want to be playing like your opposition agents and things like that. Putting like your Gilded Drakes. It's still going to do fine. Is it S tier? No. I'm saying it's A tier. I think it can grind pretty well. The issue is closing out the game and making sure that you're like navigating through stacks well enough.
Okay.
I fully agree with you, Alex.
Yeah. That makes sense. I played against it, and yeah, I think right now those pyroclasm and stuff don't really do much. It's still, I think in my opinion, it's still a S tier deck, though, right?
I would disagree. Personally, playing through it, it doesn't feel nearly as strong as some of these S tier decks that we've had.
Yeah.
That's true.
It feels like you're definitely lacking in certain areas, but you can still go the distance with this deck because you're drawing so many cards, right? Like you have like 10 different draw engines.
Card draw is good, guys. Drawing cards is broken.
Crazy.
So I think, do you want to put it in A tier then?
I'm pretty comfortable with putting it in A tier.
That sounds about right. Oh, speaking of turns decks, all right, we got Tas. Wait, no, what is that? Tygam. I was gonna say Tassiger, and I was like, wait a second. Yeah, Tygam. Yeah. I've never seen this deck. I don't know what you guys' opinions on it. I know it's an extra turns deck.
On this one, because I actually have played against Tygam a fair amount in recent time. I don't think Tygam is very good, but I have noticed there's a slight upswing in extra turns decks in the current meta. They are probably, just in general, the extra turn archetype is a little bit better than it has been in, I don't know, I'd say a while. The extra turn archetype is better than it has been. Now, unfortunately, Tygam winds up having the problem of you kind of need Tygam out to be getting ahead and really doing to be getting ahead basically. And Tygam's ability doesn't play very well into Rule of Law, even though you can like do stuff with him.
Well, that's the issue though, isn't it? You cast your spell and then it has rebound, and the next turn it comes back with rebound and it rebounds back, and that's your spell for turn. That's the issue I see. So I'm not very high on this deck. I'll be perfectly honest. I kind of agree with what you were saying about extra turns are better, but every time I see this deck in the past, it's just been like, whew. Are you sure you want to make this choice?
Yeah. Where are we putting this? B then?
I think it is B.
B sounds about right.
I think
I'd say C.
It's a C tier deck. Yeah. But I do think it is a B tier deck. Just because it's one of those decks that if you can make it, if you can survive early and make it into the later game with the mid-range decks, you can actually kind of just bully out the mid-range decks with Tygam, making all of your stuff uncounterable.
Yeah.
I will say, though, one of the worst things about playing Tygam, though, is that you give people an amazing phantasmal image target, and often A play that you'll see happen is the Turbo Naz deck will cast a Phantasmal Image, copy the Tygam, and then cast their Adnaz, and then everyone's like, shit.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, let's Alright, so we're gonna be talking about a zombie now. This is an interesting monocolored deck that we actually played against recently at our local game store. Or at least I did. What do you guys think on the? I don't think the deck's in that.
I'm not a believer in this deck. I think it kind of goes with Marath, to be honest.
I think it's a little better.
It's a little bit better than Marath, but I mean, it struggles.
It struggles, but I think Azami is in a unique place right now where it can kind of succeed because you're able to, how do I put it? You're able to kind of like grind through stacks. You can't win through it, but you are able to amass like a shit ton of advantage with Azami, and Azami does dodge a lot of the stack-based interaction of the format. That being said, though, mono blue and a 5-mana commander is just not great.
Especially 3 blue.
You're gonna have an uphill battle from the moment that you pick this deck. Just recognize that.
Yeah, Jeweled Lotus is very useful for the deck. Even in mono blue, or more so in mono blue, when you have multiple ways to find that card, it can help with getting Azami out. I do think this deck is
probably a D.
You know what's a real stinker about the 5 CMC? It's 2 blue. Grim Monolith and Manavault won't get you the full 3. It only pays for 2.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd say it's a D tier in my opinion. What about you guys?
I think it's a C tier.
Really?
I think it's a little bit above. There are some decks that I think it's above. I'm just gonna say that. Do you
think it's better than Nath?
Yeah, it's better than Nath.
Well, I think there are some cEDH decks that it's better than. I think there are some bottom of the barrel cEDH decks that I'd be inclined to play this over.
Would you say it's better than Bloodsower?
No.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it D tier.
I wouldn't say
high D tier. High D tier is where I'm putting it.
All right, fine.
All right, let's get on to Yuriko. I think this deck's awesome. You play ninjas. This is literally the ninja deck in cEDH. Like, this could not get cooler. Like, the flavor text win on this deck is awesome. It's definitely a unique deck because you obviously play those ninjas to get a value from Yuriko. And it's a cool, like, it's a mid-range deck for sure that grinds down pretty well. And it's obviously Dimir, so it's got that blue-black, which is probably the 2 best colors, maybe.
So one thing I really like about Yuriko is using it as a anti-stacks pick, because you can't build it in a way where you're flipping these cards and making these stacks decks sweat. Now, is that better than, like, maybe just hoping that you get, like, Peer into the Abyss and you hit them for 7 and be playing, like, an ad nauseum game plan? I'm not really familiar enough with the deck to make that distinction.
Yeah.
But I do think it's, like, pretty interesting. I would hesitate to put it in S tier, though.
Yeah. I think it'd be around like an A tier. What about you, John?
Yeah, I would also be inclined to put it at A tier. The deck always winds up bugging me, just because there are a bunch of like cards that you use to enable Yuriko that aren't great, and those cards wind up like falling off into the late game.
Yeah, like Ginger Brute.
Yeah, you play like Ornithopter and stuff just to get in with your Yuriko early. And those cards really just don't hold up when you start playing the mid-range game plan and all of a sudden you want your stuff to be super valuable. That being said, it does have a pretty decent engine and you are able to pressure decks just straight out of the command zone, and be playing blue-black, which are the 2 best colors. And I would be inclined to say that this is an A tier deck as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a deck that can really fall too low. The floor is relatively high.
Right. All right. Let's. I'll let John talk about this one a little more, but we're gonna go over Crick, which is probably one of his favorite decks.
Oh, yeah.
Where
How do you want me to?
Let's talk
Do you want
about
me
your
to,
build. I like your build. I
You want me
think,
to build?
yeah, he builds Crick in a very like turbo way where it is very, very fast. It's not like a stacks breaker, which you could build it like that as well.
Yeah.
It is more of a turbo, the one you do is at least, and I like it like that. I mean, obviously, if you're like in an inbred stacks meta, you can build it like that, but I think it's cool that you can build it 2 different ways.
Yeah. I like playing the deck going much faster because a lot of people play a slower build of Crick that doesn't wind up working. Or it works. It definitely works when it works. But in my opinion, when you're trying to win and the best decks in the meta are Turbo Nas decks, you can't really be super reliant on having a ton of creature removal and being like this stacks breaker deck when the Turbo Nas decks are just going to be saying thank you and roll over you after you kill whatever cards, right?
Yeah.
And so the deck winds up having this very interesting thing going up for it where you wind up having, you can't really deal with a lot of your problems in the like conventional sense, like removing stacks pieces that are like stopping your win.
Mono black just doesn't do that outside of killing creatures, right? Enchantments, it's feed the swarm really.
With enchantments very well. You can't deal with counter magic very well. You can. I play a fair amount of Thoughtseize effects, which I feel are underrated. They're pretty. They're a lot better in paper when you can read the body language of people and kind of be able to say, "Oh, okay, I know who's going to be interacting based on how they're acting and playing." But this deck, it winds up. Often you're able to actually play through the stacks pieces because you have multiple different ways to win. Usually, if there's like a rule of law out, one of the ways that you can win through that is by playing a buried alive combo, where all you need to do is reanimate it and just win like that off the spot. And you can facilitate this by getting a necromancy, so you can bury it alive on your turn, and then on somebody's next turn, you can actually win at instant speed. And
it uses final parting pretty well, right?
Yeah. And then use final parting to put Vilas onto the battlefield. And then
the coolest, I think the coolest part about this deck, at least watching it, I think I played it once, but it's you literally just turbo out Crick, and then your deck just becomes like pay life to do things. Your whole deck, if you like playing with Phyrexian mana, which is just one of the most broken mechanics ever.
It unlocks everything.
Unlocks that for every. It's just like if every black card was printed with Phyrexian mana, and that's just insane. And so like having that is just like so cool. It is a very, very interesting deck to play, and I like seeing decks like this.
Yeah, once you get Crick, it almost feels like you can literally play everything that you have.
Exactly.
You get them out and you untap, and then all of a sudden it's just kind of like, well, I can just play whatever I want. I'm like not restricted by mana.
You get down really low, so you gotta watch that health and not get hit. Or where would you put Crick? Or what do you think?
Yeah, you wind up being kind of a glass cannon, but you can do pretty well. I think Crick winds up being a B tier deck.
B tier? That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I'll show the info.
I know it hurt you to say that.
Yeah. True though.
It's true, but it definitely does. It's gotten worse with all the new cards too. That's the thing that sucks. The only thing it got was Jewel Lotus, but then it was getting kind of hosed by all the new like free interaction and opposition agent. Hole Breacher was awful. Luckily it got banned, but
Hole Breacher is banned and opposition agent is less played now. People have realized the card is not
that good.
as is not as amazing as it was.
I love
initially.
it. I think it's cool.
You can't afford to play it in these very proactive decks.
Exactly.
Because what ends up being is a hate bear that sits around, and that's not neg you advantage. And a lot of times with these faster decks, a hate bear is like kind of the last thing you want to be playing. It's like you're going in the wrong direction. You want to be finishing the game quicker, not dragging it out longer, so other decks can figure out how to stop you with like get the counterspell or slam down its stacks piece.
Yeah. So let's talk about I'll show the infinite. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Someone
poor
played this
Elf.
deck, I remember. But yeah, I don't think it's in the best spot.
I'm pretty mixed on this, to be honest. I've never been like a huge fan of it, but
Yeah.
the fact that it has like some compact combos is nice.
It's got interesting combos.
Yeah.
I say combos, but really the only way I think of is top.
That's what I'm just thinking of Sensei's Divining Top as well.
Yeah. I think what combos are they on other than top stuff right now? I'm actually
Has to be Breach. Has to be Breach with Brain Freeze.
I don't. Yeah, I'm pretty sure people do they. Yeah, I'm pretty sure people play. I haven't really seen the deck around though.
I really haven't either. Yeah.
And that's kind of because one, it's like you have to get out this 5 mana commander
With
and then kind of tap with it. And then all of your wins that are with your commander wind up being things that don't play through Rule of Law. So it winds up being pretty clunky.
Yeah. So you end up having like intuition because that's the classic Jeskai pile, right? You're piling it with intuition, the Savine's Reclamation, the Underworld Breach, and the Lion's Eye Diamond. But again, you need to still remove the Rule of Laws and things like that. And I don't know, just looking at this deck list, when you're playing stuff like Smothering Tithe, that doesn't seem right to me. That doesn't seem like a recipe for success.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm gonna put this in like C tier probably.
I would put it in either C or D tier right now.
Yeah. I'd say it's
Really?
C.
Wow.
Bottom of
I was
C.
probably going to say B, but
Oh really?
for everything that we've mentioned, C does make more sense.
I just haven't seen it.
I wouldn't put it down with Azami and Marath.
Ooh, we're going next.
Still gets you advantage, and you're playing 3 colors. But yeah, you have an uphill battle.
All right. Sorry, I was excited to talk about the next deck, which is the number 1 deck in the format. Paco, hold on. I'm just kidding.
That's an instant double S. It beats up the Nas decks.
Exactly. So I came back from playing cEDH after like a year, and like I come back, everyone's playing these Nas decks, and I'm like, I don't like these decks. These are like lame. Kind of reminded me of like not as bad as Flash Hulk, but it gave me that kind of feeling. So yeah. I was like, what is a deck that just like beats the crap out of these decks and just like does like really interesting stuff? And Paco Haldon is that deck. It is a mid-range deck at heart, and it thrives when you have a stacks deck playing with you, because the stacks deck will slow the game enough so that Paco comes out, and once Paco comes out and then Haldon is out, you just instantly can just hold down the Nas players from there and just beat them to death, and it's super funny. I've gotten one-shots with Paco multiple times, and you end up killing one player really quickly, and it's usually the Nas player, so it's pretty funny. John hates when I play this deck against his blue farm deck, but
I think one of the advantages with playing Paco as like this mid-range piece is, well, okay, you can just mulligan for mana, but beyond that, once you're actually in the position where you're like smacking the Turbo Nas players enough that their game plan becomes more dicey, you actually do have game against these stacks decks because you have like such a big attacker. Paco is just going to run things over.
He is.
Yeah.
And Haldon gives you that crazy advantage because every turn you're exiling those non-creature cards, and you're usually if you're playing against Nas decks, which is most of the decks, you're going to end up getting some gas cards because that's all they play. And so
stacks benefits you, and then you're able to run them over eventually.
Right.
That's the kind of nice thing.
So it's really fun. It's awesome. It's one of the most interesting like decks to play because you're literally just playing other people's decks. And so you can kind of like get a feeling of like a bunch of random stuff, and all you really do is kind of just like put out the dog, and then, you know, what the dog doing. Literally. Yeah, and so I'd say
Dog with the counter on it.
I kind of want to say this is around A tier, but I might be biased.
It's A to B.
I think I was considering B tier, but I think it's a little bit above some of these other decks. If we're talking like Tygam and Rograkh, I think Paco has a little bit more going on.
It does. Yeah. It does more. I think it's very interesting, and it does have interesting lines. I'm on the Hermit Druid one, if you guys are curious. That's a better one. It's a list by Shaper, I think.
Don't play Season Pass.
And I tried the extra turns Season Pass loops, and it was just too convoluted. It takes too much mana. Hermit Druid
Season's Pass has always been that one card that's like the one that got away.
It doesn't feel right doing that Season's Pass loop when you could just do the Hermit Druid and Thrasios Oracle with Memory's Journey. So I'd rather there, but yeah, I think A tier, and it's one of my favorite decks to play. It's very, very funny. Another deck that's pretty similar, in my opinion, or at least it looks similar to me, is the Shark deck. The
Braylon Shabraz.
Braylon Shabraz is very cool. I've seen gameplay of it, but I've never played against it or with it. So what are you guys' thoughts on this one?
So I'm thinking it's similar to like Elsha. This is kind of like your Jeskai deck. I think with like the ability to like staple Curiosity effect on, I think it has the edge over something like Elsha, where you're like, I guess, more concerned about card quality. I think you can do better with Braylon and Shabraz. I suppose if you get stopped, you can just play the Sky Shark and go to town. Now, I'm not going to put this above B tier, though, because I still think it's pretty limited because of the colors.
Yeah. My gut instinct tells, honestly, like, I've seen people play this deck on videos and stuff, and I've seen it before, but I've never actually played against this deck. My gut tells me this is a C tier deck. I could believe it as being a B tier deck just because its Curiosity combo is pretty compact. But I also feel like it just doesn't have really much going on.
I think I'm gonna put it bottom of B. Is that good?
It's somewhere between B and C.
I'll put it bottom of B. I think that makes sense because it's a very interesting deck, and it does have like a way to get through the stacks with the shark and like go above people like that. But
maybe I guess let's compare to something like Joyra or Animar. Do we think it's shut down as hard as those decks?
No, it's not at all.
I don't think. But I will say this: the deck winds up having. Shabraz doesn't quite get as big. It doesn't get as big like Paco does, and does not quite take over games. And then I'll also say that a somewhat often play pattern that you can see with this deck when trying to win and like attach your Curiosity to Brawlin is Brawlin can just get bounced.
Right.
And that is a way that the deck is interacted with. And then your Curiosity or Ophidian Eye will just fall off.
Yeah. A lot of these like partner commanders, they get counters and stuff like that. Bounce spells are definitely they hurt them.
Yeah, I can see either top of C or like bottom of B.
Sure. Maybe I'm like a little biased. I just think that having a shark in the command zone is kind of nice, but I agree with your points here. I'm
gonna say bottom of B because you're playing a cool shark. You're playing a flying shark, which is just sick.
Based.
It's like Paco Haldan, like dude.
You get politic points.
I want to put Paco Haldan in S tier just because you get to play a giant dog.
Yeah.
Really, I think like the differences I'm looking at compared to Elsha, I think it just has more legs than Elsha right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely does. Yeah. I think it's in B tier actually because of that. Let's go on to the food chain deck, the best one.
Ukima Kazur. Yeah. So I actually have some experience playing this, and one of our friends is currently playing the deck right now, though he's not having as much success. So I'll say that this deck is strong. I think it's the best of the food chain decks, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. The fact that you have your outlet in the command zone is very good, but the flaws are definitely noticeable with food chain. I think it just has issues dealing with some of these like rule of law decks. Again, and it's not grinding as well as these partner decks for like Turbo Nas, which have like a Tymna in the command zone or a Kraum, something like that. So I think it's a good deck in its own right, but I think it is a little bit behind in the race.
Also, the partner like is just there for colors. Like he's absolute garbage. Like you don't do anything with him. He's a blocker. It's pretty funny.
Kazur is hilariously bad.
Kazur is just bad. It just doesn't do anything. You're just playing it for the food chain outlet.
Here's the thing about playing out both of your commanders, right? You totally can go and like start hitting people with Ukima and gaining counters on him, but there's always just enough Gilded Drake that you can't be comfortable doing that. You know, Gilded Drake isn't as popular anymore, but still around. It's not as much as before, but you really hate life if Ukima gets Gilded Draked.
Yeah, exactly. It is kind of annoying for that, but
the deck, it's in a weird spot where it's not very, even though like, and honestly, I'll just say this: food chain is in a very weird spot right
Agreed.
now. Food chain has historically been like a pretty good thing to be doing. Food chain been like a pretty powerful card for most of cEDH, but I think right now is probably the worst that I can think cEDH. I think right now is the worst food chain has
been. Yeah, for sure.
I 100% agree with that. If I was going to play a Sultai deck, I would actually consider playing Sidisi Brood Tyrant right now because you have the Hermit Druid lines, and I think Hermit Druid is just a better win condition than food chain right now.
Where do you want to put this?
I'm still gonna say A tier. I think it still is like it's pretty solid. It's definitely above all the decks that we have listed in B tier, but
I can agree with that,
it's solid. It's not outstanding.
I'd say bottom of A tier. Yeah.
I want to say this, Alex. It's better than those decks, but when you're playing against all of the best decks, I think a lot of the B tier decks wind up actually being able to win in certain of those games, just because they have like they can work well into like certain variations of pods. Right. This deck winds up having difficulty though, because even when you are dodging the stacks, Turbo Nas just winds up being faster than you. And it winds up being pretty difficult. Well,
you don't need to tell me that's why I switched off the deck. But
yeah, he literally switched off. That's right. I'd say let's put it at top of B tier. I think that's fine.
It is bad, but I feel like it is B tier right now, just because it doesn't really have favorable pods.
It doesn't. Yeah.
I would say its best pods are probably with a bunch of mid-range decks. But even those I feel like are not the greatest. Like if we're looking at this deck when it's playing against like top tier decks, and so what else do we have in B tier right now, right?
So we got Brea,
we've got Brea, we have Tygam, Crick, Brawlin. They all have like certain things or certain pods where they can perform in, right? But I think, food chain Ukima Kazur is in general better than these decks. It just, you're just playing better cards and the combo is better, but it doesn't play within the confines of like what we're working with here very well. And you either find yourself like having a difficult time dealing with all the stacks that's around, or you find yourself in the spot where you have to race the Turbo Nas decks.
Well, I think the value in that though is that if you're playing against these stack decks with like Rule of Law, let's think about it. Like you can play through the Rule of Law with Taint Pact in the same way that like other Nas decks can, right? That's you still have the ability to tech in these bounce spells. You're not affected by Collector Oof really at all, or these Null Rod effects, because you're reliant on dorks. That's like the whole thing compared to the Nas decks. So I don't think it's really as bad as you say.
Yeah.
But I can throw you a bone and put it down to the B tier, even though I don't necessarily agree.
I think top of the B tier. I think it starts the B tier is where I'm gonna say, because I've seen it played and it does kind of get stuck a lot of the time, and it doesn't get there, and it's almost like a turn behind, which is honestly a lot of the decks.
It just winds up being a little awkward in a large variation of pods, I feel like. And I feel like our A tier decks are a little bit better.
Yeah. I would say
even though I think this deck is definitely like as good as, and even in like previous metas, I think like this deck is actually in general better than Godo. and Alia, yeah.
Nothing's better than Godo.
Yeah, I know. But I think it has a tough time.
Yeah.
It's multiple interesting ways.
All right, let's get on to Calamax. I think this deck's so cool, but I've never seen it play.
Yeah, Calamax.
It's a very odd deck.
I'm smelling like a C tier already.
Yeah, probably.
It is at the highest a C tier.
I like my dinosaur, but come on, man.
Yeah.
It is
like it copies things, right? That's what it does. It just.
Yeah. Like.
Yeah. That's
here's the thing. I mean, it's only instants. It doesn't even copy sorceries, right? That would at least be such a good bone to throw to the deck, because then you can play stuff like Nature's Lore and start ramping like crazy, or things like that. There's so many good sorceries that would be benefiting for Calamax, but the fact that it only copies instants is pretty limited.
Oh, it only copies instants? Oh shoot, that sucks.
Yeah, it's your first instant each turn.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say C tier, bottom. Or maybe
it's a fat
D
tier. This is like an Elsha feeling deck for me.
Yeah, I think it has just as much legs as Elsha, to be honest, because it does have that cool copy effect, and it's very interesting. And when you get counters, so you can make it like kind of fat and maybe like get through on some people and just like throw people off, but.
Why do we keep talking about Elsha with legs? This is weird, especially because the art has like her stick doing the stanky leg or whatever.
Dude, that's pretty funny. I didn't even think about that. That's hilarious. See, Elsha does got legs though. Holy. All right, let's get.
I think I mentioned it once it became a problem.
Oh no. What's the next one? It's that bird.
Ishai. So we're talking about Jessica Ishai.
Yeah, Jessica Ishai.
So I'm not really familiar with this one as much as John is.
I've seen someone.
I'll say that.
I've watched it get played, and I've seen it just one shot someone on like turn 2 or 3. It was really funny.
So in terms of the way I've heard this described as like the sort of like Delver or like tempo based deck of like cEDH, Najeela just has to do that better, right?
It kind of does, but at the same time, Najeela does not get opponents dead as fast, and Ishai does not have to deal with blockers. Ishai winds up being like, Najeela's better, but when we're talking like in general, right, it has a combo built into the command zone. But when we're talking about like the whole Delver-esque game plan, Ishai Jessica does that. It does it much better. I've seen this thing literally just take over games. It has, I would say, the only real matchup that you don't want to be in with this deck is a bunch of Turbo Nas decks. You're going to have difficulty there, but if the pot is mixed in pretty much any way, you can usually get the game to flow at a pace where you can cast Ishai, have it get buffed up, choose to cast Jessica, maybe not. You can triple strike Ishai and often just like the turn after you've cast Ishai, just kill someone.
Right.
The deck can very often wind up piggybacking on a stacks player and then
it's kind of like
kill.
Godo. Or sorry, not Godo, like Paco.
Yeah, it's kind of like Paco. I would say, I think it's even.
It might be a little better, honestly.
A little bit better.
Yeah. It's different. There's different styles because you got white in there and stuff.
They're different styles. They're very close.
They're pretty close.
Very close. I think it is a little bit better. You're able to do breach combo stuff in metas or in pods where you don't have to deal with stacks as much, and that can be nice. With you have like intuition piles and stuff, and
so that's just another way to close out the game.
Yeah.
So this sounds like another A tier to me.
I think it's literally right in front of Paco is where I'm gonna put it.
Yeah, it's an A tier.
I think it's an A tier deck. It's a cool deck for sure. I like these type of decks. They're the cool partner decks, as I like to call them. Unlike the stinky Tymna decks.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Tavesh. So is this Tavesh card?
What do you have to go with Tavesh here?
I think it was supposed to be Tavesh Kraum, is what I was thinking. Yeah, there's not enough Kraums going around, but yeah, this will be Tavesh Kraum.
We're out of Kraums.
We're out of Kraums. But yeah, Tavesh Kraum, that's usually what people do it with, right?
Yeah, there's also like Rog Tavesh, and then there's Tavesh Thrasios if you really want to play that.
Right. Well, we'll just talk about Tavesh as like.
So I think the issue with Tavesh that you can run into is if you're playing in these more like Nas metas or where it's like more mixed, you're incentivized to play Kraum because it's really good as a fallback when games go on slower while still providing good colors. The issue is that Tavesh will just eat Kraum hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what dissuades me from playing Tavesh, unfortunately.
However,
Commander,
I think Tavesh still does like some good grinding.
Yeah. If we're talking about this in the context of Kraum Tavesh, right?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
You're still playing, the best 3-color combination in cEDH right now. You're playing the best proactive strategy, and you have like pretty good grind game. And that honestly, just kind of by itself,
I think it puts it in S tier. I'm thinking.
Yeah, the deck
Still gonna go in S, I think. Yeah,
that feels S tier. I think it's low S tier.
That's why I'm putting it. Yeah,
it's because it winds up
sorry, I'm like cutting you off.
Yeah, Tavesh winds up getting bullied, just like you were saying, Alex.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I find interesting about Tavesh is that he does enable some weird cards. So like Mystic Reflection is my go-to that I think is really interesting because you can play Mystic Reflection, uptick Tavesh, and then get 2 copies of a creature on board. So that can be a Dockside, that can be a Gilded Drake. You're playing that main deck. So you do have like some interesting stuff there. And of course you're like still playing these like Culling the Weak and Diabolic Intent because Tavesh is going to fuel that. But overall, yeah, he does have some problems with getting attacked.
I just pulled up that card. It's okay. It's pretty interesting. I actually never even seen this card.
What it comes down to at the end of the day is how bad can Grixis Turbo Nas really be?
Exactly. It's the best color and it's the best. If you're playing Grixis and you're playing those commanders that we listed, you're usually going to be doing pretty well in most of your games. It's definitely got a lot of stuff going for it. So next we're going to be talking about that Krark.
Yeah, so this is going to be Krark Sakashima. Double Krark.
Right, double Krark. And that's a lot of the Sakashima decks are literally just double. That's all they do, but it's pretty interesting. What do you guys think of this deck? I remember seeing this, and it's very interesting.
So it's interesting, but I haven't heard of it having a lot of success.
Yeah, what do you play?
To be honest,
Krark's Thumb or something?
A little bit of success. If you can get the table to not worry about you, the deck can perform It can actually perform really well if you get your 2 commanders to stick. And not only that, if you manage to dodge stacks.
Do you play Krark's Thumb in this?
I don't know
if you would flip a coin and said you ignore one. And
I think some lists might, but I don't think it's like they all do. I know they play copy effects and like Twin Flame and stuff, so that way they can get a ton of Krarks.
Yeah, that's
true.
That makes sense. They're more of copying it rather than trying to hit.
Oh yeah,
triggers.
And you're going nuts.
Yeah, but I used to have this card, Krark's Thumb. I sold it a while ago, and it was like $10. Now it's like $29. But
the deck winds up having trouble into Turbonaz and like a lot. It can perform better into stacks, or it can perform okay into stacks, but it's still not like favorable. Where this deck really shines is when you have a bunch of mid-range decks that are not willing to bounce your Krark when you cast Sakashima.
That makes sense.
That if this deck can make it into the mid game with the Krark Sakashima combo going online, it is nigh impossible to stop what it's doing on the stack. When it's
the comparison I'm making is we have the whole thing going on with Ukima Kazur too, right? I don't think this deck beats that. I don't think it's like better position than that or stronger.
I think it's worse. I think this deck is a C tier deck.
A C tier,
but
okay.
In the pods where it has legs, it's like really good. However, it's just not actually. It's not a very large amount of them.
You can also screw yourself if you don't flip right. That's the thing.
You can screw yourself if you don't flip right, and honestly, like people give this people just don't respect this deck as much as they should, and people are starting to respect it a little bit more. And one of the reasons why it did have some success is the amount of like memes that were thrown at it, basically the amount of jokes that people are like, oh, what is this deck, right? But like the deck it's a cEDH deck, right? But it has problems. But
it sounds like a B tier to me.
I put it at the high of C tier, like the height of it, or the highest one.
I think it's better than C tier.
Actually, I think it's better. I agree with you actually there. I think it's better than C tier. Joyer is the tip of that, but I think it's still like is just a touch above.
Yeah.
I think it's around Brolon, Crick. And, yeah, that sounds about right, honestly.
Yeah.
It's got interesting stuff. Let's go to Kodama Sakashima, which I think is the better Sakashima deck, personally.
Yeah, I think double Kodama has the edge simply because it has, instead of like being a threat in these mid-range pods, instead it's like a monster in these stacks pods because they just can't stop it.
Oh, you literally can't. This deck is like, once it comes out, it just literally, you just dump your hand.
Yeah,
like
it's
the Kodama comes down and the stacks players start dripping with sweat.
Yeah.
If the deck, pretty much in stacks and mid-range pods, this deck is very good. It feels good. But if you wind up playing against a bunch of Turbo Naz decks, you're gonna get overrun.
Does it play stacks pieces though, like Collector Roof and stuff like that?
I think it plays a couple.
Maybe like Root Maze, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So it's got ways to slow it down, but obviously it just can't compete up there. I would consider putting this in A tier, like low A tier.
That's where
I'm thinking A tier too, because here's the thing also, right, compared to, again, the whole double Krark thing, right? When you're going to the mid-range pods, you're also not displeased by that.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's go into...
You just have to time the Kodama right to dodge the counter spell for it. But again, it's a creature. People are playing fewer creature counter spells.
Oh, 100%. Let's go into the Arumea, right? Is that it?
Army of the Dead Tide?
Yeah.
Oh, Arami?
Arami, is that how you say it? I'm so bad at saying these names sometimes. But yeah, Arami. I know, John, you kind of talked about this deck before. I don't know much about it, but it looks really cool.
Actually that great. I don't think she's that great. But
okay.
The deck is cool. As cool as like
it does neat stuff, but it's like the worst Sinala in my opinion.
Yeah. It kind of is, honestly. But it is a little bit cuter than Inala. There's interesting stuff you can do. The deck winds up playing kind of similar to Inala, other than the fact that you have to get out your commander before you can do any of that stuff.
Right.
The things that the deck has going for it is you can play decent into a lot of pods, but you're not playing. I would argue that stacks is probably I would say it's got a pretty reasonable matchup rate against like most things, and you're playing Dimir, so you have like the two best colors. But Alex, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, sure. So I think this deck has like some interesting stuff that you can do. I mean, you're giving things encore, right? You're getting multiple copies. That can be interesting. So it helps when you're like grinding it and you're doing something like a Gilded Drake. But overall, I just don't think it's gonna go the distance in a lot of games.
Yeah, I'm considering putting it.
It's like a little bit too cute. It's the stuff where it's good are like too much of like corner cases, really. If you want to just like focus on something that's like really, you want something that's more focused in this deck, I think.
This is like a C tier deck, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
just because
I have to agree.
It's like it just has like some of these decks like they come down to like they might not be the best deck, but their colors are good, so it automatically puts them into like a B or C, and that kind of just happens. Like with Nath, it's like green black, and it's just like, or like monocolored decks like Rami, it's like the monocolor really hurts. You really, when you're going the slower colors you really want your deck to be really streamlined, like Godo. But
that's the thing. When you're giving up access to colors, the reason you're doing that is because you're playing a commander that's good. Otherwise, you could just play some like generic 4-color or 5-color combination and do fine. So you want your commander to do something, and if it can't pull enough weight, then it's hard to justify.
Okay, this next deck is really odd. It's Nymeric? Una's Trester?
Oh, get this shit out of here.
What is this? I
think Nimbus is another C tier.
Is another C tier? What does it do exactly?
It does 4-color Rashmi Boris.
Oh, it's Dimir 4-color.
It's like, I thought you were gonna say Rashmi Boris. I think it's arguably the same.
Maybe it's like it's about the same as Rashmi, to be honest, but like it just more limited in color combination.
Yeah, I'd say it's a control deck, right?
Yeah.
It's like
a weird Dimir.
It's a weird kind of a control deck. It's you can say so, I guess.
It's
Remember, Nimrus is not 3, not 4, 5 mana. 5 mana.
Yeah,
for a control deck like this, it is really hard to power that out and like gain value that way. If you want to pay 5 mana, like here's a comparison with 4-color Rashmi. You can pay 2 mana for Thrasios earlier in the game. Then later on, you can pay 5 mana for the Seedborn Muse and start winning the game that way.
Right.
For Nimrus, you have to pay 5 mana like immediately. And you want to do that quick so you can start getting value off of it.
It's just too slow, and for a control deck, you don't want to be that slow, especially with the format just going fast as hell.
Funny that the list is called Nimrus Tempo on the deck list database.
That's funny. So where do you guys put that? I'm saying C tier, honestly.
I'm saying C.
Yeah. I'll put that like top of C tier.
The next. And we're at the
best
favorite
deck in the format. So this is
Ancestor's Apostle.
Instantly, we don't even have to talk about this deck.